Welcome back to the Early Bar Football Podcast. I don't know if this is technically episode 2 or not. Previously, the plan was for it to be like every Friday, but with the craziness that's going on in the world of football right now, we've decided to do what we're calling an emergency podcast, but I guess we might be getting to a point where emergencies are happening all the time. So we'll call it episode 2. The reason we decided to do this on a Tuesday is because, of course, the big story is right now, as the time of recording, it's not official, but PSG have started to post hints and teasers on their social media, and that is, of course, that arguably the greatest player of all time, Lionel Messi, is signing with PSG as we speak. He's in Paris. He's landed in Paris, and there's some extra details on this contract. Total agreement on a 2-year deal, option to extend until June 2024. Salary around 35 million euros net per season, add-ons included. Messi has definitely accepted the PSG contract proposal and, of course, is in Paris right now. So tonight we are joined by Tang, Chrissy, Leify and Ash. And we are going to start off talking, of course, about Messi. Tang, I mean, if you can stay for more than 15 seconds. Lionel Messi signing for PSG. What's your thoughts on this? We're going to talk about FFP later on. But overall, Messi to PSG, what do you think?
Well, it's actually nice to actually be on the pod and say something. Make it.
You can go.
Do you remember that World Cup final when I think it was like Sami Khedira got injured in the warm-up? That's how I felt. Yeah. I felt like I got that far, and then I just didn't even make it.
But what was great about it as well was the little like Easter egg is that he was actually eating. So his contribution was to eat, have like a mouthful, and then just vanish. So that was a lot of fun. But yes, Messi. We'll stick to
Messi, yeah. I just think we've discussed this extensively in our group chat, and I agree with what Ash said previously. It's a bit of a boring transfer, to be honest. It's a sorry state of affairs that pretty much PSG is the only place he can go. It just shows how absurd modern football is, and that he has to go there. There's nowhere else that he can go. Otherwise, he's a free agent. Who else could afford him?
No, nobody. No, but I mean, I was talking about this before actually. That. Realistically, I mean, he could go other places. He would just have to take this astronomical pay cut, right? And obviously, either he's not willing to do that, or pretty much every club, and again, this does touch on FFP, but every club's kind of realizing, you know what? Nobody realistically can actually, within the rules, afford that. You know, unless that's what annoys me about all of this is that you get this. I saw it on like Sky Sports News where they're going, well, the accountants at PSG are going to have to be very creative in how they come across this. So, well, you're basically just saying the accountants at PSG are going to have to be very corrupt in how they get around it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That doesn't seem right. So I mean, exactly. Let's just make it up. Chrissy, what do you think with Messi signing to PSG? It does feel quite surreal right now, doesn't it?
I mean, it's been a mental couple of days. I'm not just talking about my personal life, but
Chrissy.
But yeah, it is mental. I mean. None of us would have ever thought we would see Messi not in a Barcelona shirt playing for, essentially one of Barcelona's biggest European rivals. Because let's face it, PSG have made a huge statement of intent this transfer window. Not only just signing Messi on a free, they've got Donnarumma on a free, Ramos on a free, Wijnaldum on a free, and they've signed Hakimi as well. If you've offered Pochettino those 5 players and said, you're only going to spend, less than £100 million transfer fee, he'd ask what you were smoking. He'd tell you to go to an asylum. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, though, I mean, because I'll come to you, Leif, with this one, because I've seen that. I put this out on Twitter and I said, that it's crazy that they're able to sign him and all that kind of stuff. But one of the people said to me, they're all on free transfers. So
I did see that. I saw that.
So, and it's a bit like, well, it doesn't work like that, does it?
Well, no, especially usually a free transfer means just a massive sign-on fee.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's not just so. If we're talking 35, I think it's something like 35 million net, 35 million euros net. I mean, that's after taxes. But also, I think the figures are reported are something like a 35 million euro signing on bonus anyway. That might as well be a transfer fee.
Well, exactly.
Even I know people are saying about, that's still not a lot for Messi, but that's money. That's money.
Yeah. A lot of these free transfers, if you look into, I expect Ramos and Wijnaldum and not Hakimi, but Ramos and Wijnaldum's deals, they're probably huge sign-on fees and huge clauses in their contract that is replicating a transfer fee, a huge transfer fee. So it's never really free. I mean, with Messi is going to PSG. There's massive pressure now on PSG to win the Champions League because winning the league's not enough with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. If they're not going to win the Champions League with that front three, then they never are. No. Like you said in the previous podcast with Poch, the pressure's on because he's known Tottenham and Tottenham in general known as the bottle jobs. So there's massive pressure on them to go and win the Champions League. But it looks like they're going to have to make space in the squads for. There's rumours that they're looking at offering out up to 10 players in that squad. I know that Diallo, Kehrer, Icardi, Herrera, who's only been there a year and a bit, and a couple of others I think were been offered out. I've rumoured to hear, but
that itself. I mean, Barcelona can attest to that. That just because you want players to leave doesn't necessarily mean they will. The fact that Messi had to leave in the first place is because players weren't leaving. Griezmann, Umtiti, whoever it is, they couldn't get rid of them.
I don't think they can afford for them players to leave. Though, because I was actually looking at their squad. If they get rid of them players, they're really sacrificing their squad depth, like drastically
for a legendary football manager front three.
It will create a very unbalanced squad. This is the same squad that still has 4 or 5 first team goalkeepers. Yeah. So I mean, they could potentially be sacrificing a lot for Messi. Obviously, it's Lionel Messi. I'm sure he will hit the ground running, but the pressure's on. Yeah,
pressure's absolutely on. Barnes, do you think that? I mean, do you think PSG are actually going to win the Champions League this season? I mean, if you can even guarantee that, I mean, Messi would be as close as it can get, right? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, on that one, I am praying that they lose, and I hope they go up. I would love to see maybe a Barca PSG, maybe a quarterfinal or something like that, and Barca knock them out. Well, actually, not Barca, anyone. They're just as bad a run of club as quite a few others. But in general, just over the Messi transfer, I mean, I don't know. It's so romantic, isn't it? Messi, you know, one of the greatest ever player, maybe on zillions of pounds a week, moves to oil-rich PSG with loads of money, who are effectively, as you know, a sports washing vehicle for Qatar. I mean, who can make it out so romantic? But you know,
that is the driest you have ever heard.
I know that's such a cynical.
I was taking you seriously for a second.
So was I.
It's just such a. It feels me like the best player in the world is moving club. We should all be, you know, not necessarily happy, but it is intriguing. But I feel like most of the, if you look at Twitter and stuff, most of the sort of reaction is negative. It's lukewarm. It's kind of like, oh well, you know, Messi moving. Sure, it's a big story. He's the best player in the world, but he's moving to PSG. You know, they're not the most likable club. I just really hope they don't do that well. But from a purely football perspective, I think Leif mentioned it is sort of like a fantasy front three. Really interested to see how they get on. I'm sure they'll beat, you know, Nantes 9-0, Reims, and then smash them 5-0. Messi will get a hat trick and a few assists. But yeah, I'm not sure it will necessarily lead to Champions League success. But if you look at the squad, like Chris was saying, they've got their squad is, or first 11 anyway, is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it the Brest manager that made a bit of an X-rated comment at the weekend when he was talked about Messi joining Ligue 1?
He got hard on, didn't he? So.
Yeah, he said, "Well, I'd be angry. I'd get a hard on if Messi joined." It's something along those lines.
Face of Brest has been
that's what he said.
Yeah, I was going to say he's suspended 2 ready times around double entendres, isn't he? I mean, that's just. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on. It does, like Barnes mentioned it there when it comes to Messi, and I think the lukewarm reaction, because I've noticed this as well, that you see the journalists on social media really hyping it up, like, let Messi move in club, because it's a big move, it's a historic move, but everyone else is lukewarm to it, because rules like financial fair play, which is obviously what we're talking about now, rules when it comes to financial fair play, I'd rather myself personally that these rules just didn't exist, because then you can't break rules if they don't exist, right? And I think that's the frustrating thing about this, is that these rules aren't being broken. Technically, they're not being broken. They are within the parameters of legality. But it's just a case of everyone looking on this, and this is maybe why the lukewarm reaction is there. Everyone feels a bit dirty watching this. Everyone's looking at it a bit like, yeah, but you can't afford it. Like, financial fair play is meant to be, like, as a Manchester United fan, realistically, Manchester United probably could afford to get Messi on a free, because the revenue they generate is enough to be a financially viable transfer. of Manchester United make that revenue, because financial fair play is just about loss. You can't make loads and loads of money through, like, you can't lose certain amounts of money, because it was putting clubs out of business, because these owners were coming in, investing money, then pulling it out and it not working, and that was it. And when it comes to this, like now, when it comes to Messi, it's a case of, okay, he's got this massive wage, but for a fact, like, the money he wouldn't be making, or money that he, whatever else money, he will get through a Qatari sponsorship deal that realistically isn't on the books of PSG, because that's not officially their accounting, but they're a state-owned club. And it does raise the point of, when it comes to financial fair play, Tang, is it even real? I know they've been lax, but it doesn't even feel like much of a point anymore, does it?
I mean, on this, now that Messi's joined PSG, he is essentially an ambassador for Qatar now, isn't he? That's him. And, it's not like they're holding a World Cup next year or anything. That's just me speaking there. I think it's a huge issue in football. I feel like they've obviously relaxed the financial fair play rules with the whole pandemic, the whole COVID pandemic. But who is that really helping? Is helping PSG.
That's what I was thinking. It doesn't help anyone.
But it's not actually. I don't see any teams that are falling foul of financial fair play. That's a bit of too many F's in there. But I just don't know. Is it even real? I don't think it's. I don't know who is there to sort of stop.
No, exactly. And I think that it's like any kind of like law, isn't it? Whether it's like taxes or whatever, people, when laws are there or rules are put in place, people find loopholes. And obviously they're very good at it, because PSG is a club that has signed Messi, Neymar and Mbappe, and they've yet to break financial fair play. Like, that's impossible. That's impossible when you think about it. And I don't know, what do you think, Christy? I mean, when it comes to FFP, should we even bother at this point? It feels like no.
Exactly. It's kind of like, what's the point of it? Obviously you had the whole debacle with Manchester City last season. Were they going to get a Champions League spot? Have they broken FFP rules? Then all of a sudden, look at this, Man City have got all these lawyers and saying, we just made a lot of sponsorship money. And there you go, we can stay in the Champions League. It's kind of like, what's the point in it? And like, don't get me wrong, obviously, like from like the football side, Messi going to Liga, and obviously it's going to attract a larger audience. But like Barnes said earlier, you're just going to get PSG. To be honest, like, this might be a bold statement to make, but PSG should win every single game in that French league this season.
They should.
With the amount of money, I think when Lille won the title last season, I think they had like a seventh of like the wage PSG paid. It's kind of like, well, PSG should be absolutely nailing that league every season. And that is kind of like, what is the point of FFP if you're just going to allow teams to monopolize the league financially rather than, structurally through the academy and building a sustainable business model, which unfortunately these big clubs have not done.
No, exactly.
That's why Barcelona and Real Madrid are in the mud financially.
Exactly. I mean, this is a point I was going to bring up to you, Leif, that, and we kind of touched on it earlier in our group chat. If you're Barcelona, surely you've got a right to feel slightly aggrieved at this whole situation, that you had to let go, obviously your best player, arguably the greatest player of all time, Messi, because of restrictions imposed on you by La Liga, but also if they mentioned financial fair play considerations themselves. How must they feel looking at PSG, who are obviously like flaunting that they're not adhering to FFP rules, and we're just going to sign your best player? And they must be looking at that being like, what's going on? Like, what's the point?
I don't have too much pity for Barcelona, because
obviously they got themselves into that situation.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is with the Liga rules of the wage sort of structure thing there, and the below 70% isn't it? That's not obviously something that's not new. They've really just been quite irresponsible, I think, with their reckless spending over the last 2-3 years, which is quite evident to see through like the wage structure at that club and the transfer fees they spent on players who have flopped. FFP being real, it's obviously a thing, but I don't think it's anything to be scared of, because obviously Man City made a complete mockery of it. Wasn't it like a potential 2-year European fine to like a European ban to a small fine?
Yeah.
So it may be, exactly.
Yeah.
Man City it's just like signing one of their many under 23 players that they get and push through the system and sell for double the profit. But it's yeah, it's nothing to be scared of. Obviously, Man City made a complete mockery of it, and I think that's evident with PSG now. I've read something, I don't know how reliable it is, but that they weren't too bothered about FFP because the sanctioning won't happen for another 3 years, so they're just willing to take the hit. I mean, that just says it all about FFP. It's the big clubs aren't scared of FFP. It's just something, they're just a little fly in the ointment that they've got to deal with, and yeah, so it's nothing to be scared of.
But we said it earlier, didn't we? With like they say on Sky Sports, well, the accountant's got to be creative.
I know,
and they're basically just saying, well, you can get around if you want to, you know. And it's kind of this thing. I think this is why it bothers me so much, is that, you know, like when you just sit there and everyone knows what's going on, but like it's not the case of no one wants to say it. Everyone knows what's going on. Even some people are saying it, like this doesn't feel right, or there's obviously they're going around certain rules here, but everyone just goes, all right.
I know.
Or they just go, oh, okay. And like, it's even as well, like if you're a French club, and I'll move to you, Barnes, on this. If you're a French club, last year, the sort of beacon of hope for some of these French clubs was that they were going to get this big broadcasting deal, and it collapsed. And you had clubs like Lyon being with like Memphis Depay. I think at one point they were offering him out for like 2.5 million or something ridiculous like that, because they were desperate for money. They couldn't afford anything. And then at the same time this summer, you just see PSG, who have got like quadruple the wage bill of Lyon, just flaunting it all around. I mean, what's your thoughts on FFP?
I think it's quite funny, sort of speaking about PSG, how they've gone from, you know, do you remember the whole Super League debacle, and PSG were the saviors of football? They're not signing up.
Yeah.
And then Nasser Khalifi suddenly is elected to the board of UEFA. I don't know why that could be. And it kind of feels now that PSG and the amount of money they have and the Qatari ownership maybe have such influence within UEFA and such power that even UEFA with sanctions can't really, they can impose sanctions, but as City did, as Nathan was saying, they'll get a big group of lawyers, they'll get it reduced, or they won't even care because it won't come in, the ban won't come in for a few years. I mean, as for the other French clubs, it's interesting because I think PSG actually ended up playing quite a lot of, resting quite a lot of players to the Champions League. We know how much they value that competition. And that, I think, does actually allow some of the French clubs, you get quite a lot of surprising results. Like, I know it's Pochettino's first season, but they lost a lot of games. They were quite close, but they should be absolutely smashing that league, like Chris said. Yeah. That's without the signing of Messi. But they really didn't do that well. So, I'm sure they will win Ligue 1, but I doubt they'll go undefeated. I'm sure they'll end up resting. Messi will only play the games he wants to play. He's not going to be trotted out every single game. Yeah, it's definitely an intro on financial fair play. I kind of differ to you, like, I think it is an important mechanism. I think these sort of mega rich clubs, your Cities, your PSGs, even your top Premier League clubs like Chelsea, Manchester United, they can circumvent it. But I think in general for football it's quite important. Otherwise you just have pure like chaos and ultra capitalism and just anyone trying to sign anyone and it'd be madness. I think the fans ultimately would lose out. But yeah, it certainly needs looking at, and it's not really fit for purpose, especially for these big clubs.
I think when it comes to it, though, I mean, you touched on it earlier, that whoever gets PSG in, I mean, Man United had them in the group stage last year. Whoever gets PSG, when you're playing, I mean, you're desperate to beat them anyway. But now it's on another level, isn't it? It's want to be like, because it's almost like football versus wealth, isn't it? It's a case of, I want to prove that, money can't buy everything. The issue is that historically it does. Whether it is Man City or Chelsea or whoever, people you said it about Chelsea when they had all this money when Abramovich just came in. It was like, but they won't win the league, and they did eventually. Then it was a case of, well, they won't win the Champions League, and they have. City, it's a case of now, but they won't win the Champions League, but eventually, even as a United fan, we have to come to the reality of they will. They're getting closer. And it's the case with PSG. It's just the hope is when it comes to PSG is there's such a mentality issue there that maybe it's one hurdle. But if, like we said earlier on, if they can't do it now, they're never doing it. They're never doing it.
Anything can happen. Football's a game of luck. Anything can happen on a Messi might get injured. They can lose the Reds. You get an early red card, and in the Champions League, that could end you, and you could be out. So there's no guarantees.
At the risk of sounding like pro PSG, it is an exciting prospect of that attacking trio. I feel like we've been quite, because I think all of us are quite anti PSG and anti sort of even these teams that are spending like this, like recklessly. But it is an exciting prospect to potentially see Neymar. Well, we will see Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi on the same pitch.
It's no different to when Barcelona and Madrid have been doing it for years, I suppose, in the case of having Neymar, Messi, and Suarez, or having Benzema, Bale, and Ronaldo. Like that for a period of time, they were just amassing these front three of just like superstars. And I guess the positive is that they can't stick around forever. So after a couple of years, Messi will vanish.
Thing, doesn't it? Like PSG are going around that same route of the Galacticos, Madrid done under Perez.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't always work.
It didn't really. Well, Real Madrid were reasonably successful, but they weren't massively successful considering the side they had in that era.
I think if it was say the only person they signed this year was Messi, I would still go, well, you never know, defense, goalkeeper, but the fact that they've got Donnarumma and Ramos and Wijnaldum, that is literally, they have bought the strongest spine in the world. And like even without Messi, I would have said, like, Ramos and Donnarumma, that might be enough to get them over the line. Not that Navas was bad or any of their other centre backs were bad, but you're talking peak top class players there in positions they desperately needed. They don't need Messi. There's other positions they did need. So that's, I mean, look, it's the car crash on the side of the road principle. It's going to be interesting to look either way.
Where he's saying about his team, the pressure's on to win the Champions League. The pressure's on to win the league. They didn't win the league last year.
Exactly. They're going to a team that lost the league and lost in their what would be their equivalent of the Charity Shield, Community Shield the other week. So
yeah.
Well, we'll wait and see. But let's move things back to England because I don't want to talk about PSG anymore. Just tired of it. Lukaku's completing his Chelsea medical. The fee, I think, is around like £93 million, something around that ballpark figure. Thomas Tuchel and me are going to talk about Super because it's the Super Cup tomorrow, if you're aware. A lot of people aren't. everyone I mentioned to go Super Cup tomorrow, they go, is it? Oh.
I was more concerned about the League Cup tonight.
Exactly.
Tomorrow, mate.
Exactly. More important priorities. So Lukaku's completing his Chelsea medical. Thomas Tuchel was asked if he could talk about it, and he said, unless there's something to talk about, I'll talk about it. But he's having a medical. That's probably something worth talking about because that's what we're going to do here, Thomas. Bothers me. Tang, what do you think? Is this enough for Chelsea to win the league? I mean, this is the missing piece of the puzzle.
I think it's a piece. I don't know if it's the final piece. I wasn't in the first podcast, but I did put Chelsea as third in my top 4 prediction for the league. I genuinely think they're on a level where they could challenge. Lukaku wasn't bad when he was at United. He scored a decent amount of goals, had a good record. He just wasn't, I don't think it was the right fit for that team at that point. He's gone to Italy for, 1 or 2 seasons, and he's done very well. And now he's coming back. I just feel that this is an important part of the puzzle. He'll get you a lot of goals this season. I think it's a good deal for Chelsea. I really do.
I think it's weird as a Man United fan personally because you forget as well that season we bought him. He was linked to Chelsea the entire year, and it's one of the rare times United actually swooped in and got someone else, and they ended up getting Morata. I mean, jokes on them. And even then, it kind of felt a bit bizarre. He would have been a better suit for Chelsea even then. And I think you're right. Like at United, his record's not bad. His record wasn't bad at United. It's just, especially in his last year, he was just not right for us. And the Lukaku that was playing in Italy was nowhere near the player that was playing for Manchester United, especially in that last year. Well, he was a larger frame, big bones. It happens to all of us, like
big bone, yeah.
Okay. It happens to all of us. We all go through ups and downs. Okay, Lukaku. Exactly. But Chrissy, what do you think? Is this enough for them to win the league, or is there still more they need?
I mean, personally, I'm going to stick with what I said in the first episode, and I still think they'll finish third. I think obviously it's going to be a tight, top 3 between City, United, and Chelsea. But I just think it's going to be interesting to see how Tuchel fits players around Lukaku. Because let's face it, they're spending that much money on him. He's going to be the main man. He's going to be the guy that they're going to build, the attack around. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the likes of, Havertz, Mount, Pulisic, how are they going to play Werner and Lukaku together, whether they're going to play them as a 2 centrally, or if Werner's going to have to shift out to either the left or right, or if Werner has to go on the bench to, accommodate a Pulisic, a Mount, a Ziyech even, even they've still got Hudson-Odoi as well. I mean, obviously, we sort of know that obviously Abraham's on his way out of the club. looks like he's going to go to Roma, and that, which, to be honest, like, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be real. I don't really like Chelsea. Obviously, you can see his shirt behind me and that. But if I'm a Chelsea fan,
yeah, he sports Arsenal tonight. It's interesting.
Arsenal are Oxford. Come on, it says on my Twitter bio. Only got Chris, by the way. But yeah, I mean, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I'd be a bit upset that, you know, selling an academy graduate and that, you know, just to, you know, fund Lukaku. I think Abraham didn't really get a fair chance.
I was gonna bring up Abraham, Leif, because like Chrissy said, the rumours Roma, and then I heard like only an hour ago that, again, the rumour about Arsenal's coming up. I mean, if you were advising him, picture yourself as Tammy Abraham's advisor. It's a great gig. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a good gig.
Just this is what this podcast does. It opens doors. It just opens doors. Tammy Abraham's advice after one podcast. What would you say to him? Would you say Arsenal, or would you say go abroad?
I think go abroad. I think the way it helped a few English players in the past few years, it seems to be beneficial for him, as he could go to a new league and really push on, especially under Mourinho's management at Roma. It could be an interesting season for them. I don't know if necessarily a Super Mourinho team, but yeah, I think fresh start, go abroad. I don't think moving into another team in London, I don't think is going to give them too much of a fresh start.
And it's Arsenal. Yeah,
Arsenal,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a poor club. Awful.
we just signed Chelsea rejects at this point.
It wouldn't be the first, would it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first. You know, David Luiz, Willian. You know, might as well add Abraham to the list as well.
But look, on Lukaku, I think I would say he's guaranteed goals. I wasn't a massive fan of him at United in terms of his link-up play and his whole game overall. It was infuriating to watch at times, but he does score goals. And he's a different beast than what he was at United. He looks like a different beast at Inter Milan. He has been quite impressive some of the games I've watched him. I don't know whether it would affect the players around him so much. I don't think he's actually probably as good linking up the players. Werner, I think Werner's probably easy to play with in terms of Havertz and Mount and those players around him. I think Mount would be quite surprised that the ball's bouncing off Lukaku as she plays into him.
And then he does the thumbs up afterwards. He was over the bar. It used to so annoy me so much. It'd be like, through ball, Lukaku through on goal, over the bar, turns around, thumbs up. Oh. Stop it with the thumbs up score.
What's the move with him playing? He looks like he's playing in Timberlands.
Yeah, I know. First touch, then skies it. Oh.
He's guaranteed goals, though, and that is kind of what Chelsea lack a little bit. Werner wasn't really that man. So yeah, he will score goals, and it'd be interesting to see how he fits in that system and how he fits around with the players around him, the more technical players around him like Havertz, Mount, and Pulisic.
I mean, certainly, like Barnes just rounding off this one. I mean, Chrissy pointed it out. I mean, they do have a lot of options as well going forward, Chelsea, right? I mean, Chrissy mentioned they got Ziyech, Mount, Pulisic, Havertz, Hudson-Odoi. So if Lukaku's going to be the one to play, let's say, every game, surely they're certainly a threat, right? They have to be with someone like Lukaku.
I mean, they've got to be. I was a big one last season. One of them. Timo Werner's going to come good. Timo Werner's going to come good. He didn't really come good. I mean, he struggled, but I genuinely think he would. I want to say he would have done well this season, but we haven't even started the season yet. But with Lukaku joining, it just feels like he's not going to get the same opportunities that he would have. But yeah, I have absolutely no idea, to be honest, how they're going to fit all those quality attacking players in. But I think that's Tuchel will find a system, and I stand by what I said on the last pod that I think they'll win the Premier League. What I don't necessarily understand is why Manchester City are looking at Harry Kane and didn't sign Lukaku when he's probably cheaper and I'd argue better, in my opinion. It's a very odd one. I would have thought he would have fitted in far better there. Well, Chelsea already have a lot of resources, so do they really need Lukaku? Probably, as they sold Giroud, they need a striker, but they've got so many attacking players. So it would be interesting to see how Tuchel knits it all together. But it would be a big redemption for Lukaku to come back and do well in England. So I really hope he does well, because he got a lot of abuse from you Man U fans last time.
It's unfair.
Bad touch, all this.
But he does.
We'll see.
Who defended him? Who defended him, being like, well, he scores goals, though. And then, once he didn't, that's when it became difficult.
I was being nice. I was being nice.
Yeah. Leif said Timberlands. He could have said far worse.
Yeah.
You know,
It
so
could
exactly.
have said Doc Martens could have been worse. But yeah.
could have been a little worse.
Yes, very much. We'll move on. It's a good actually like segue talking about Chelsea. We'll talk about the Super Cup. We won't spend too long on this because it's just a simple who do you think is going to win. So Tang, who do you think is going to win Super Cup tomorrow? Villarreal, more trophies. Good evening.
Well, I didn't even know the European Super Cup was on tomorrow, and I didn't even know he was playing. So, from a quick Google search,
you're a good expert to have on this what
it's insightful, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just going to go Chelsea.
When is it? Who's playing?
Yeah. I'm just going to go Chelsea. I can't name you a single Villarreal player. Maybe that one. That one you play for Arsenal.
Oh, Coquelin.
Yeah, I genuinely couldn't name a single Villarreal player.
Torres. Who
signed?
Yeah,
that's how disengaged I'm with this topic. Obviously, you guys will be quite sad that you probably remember all the Villarreal players from that final.
I don't want to talk about it, Chrissy. Chrissy, we'll move on. Don't want to talk about it, Chrissy. Move on. Who do you think is going to win?
I think Chelsea will win. I mean, obviously, I have no faith in Unai Emery after his shocking spell at Arsenal. Let's just put it that way. I say shocking. He was right for the first 6 months and that, but it sort of went downhill, especially after the Baku Europa League final. But yeah, no, I think Chelsea have enough in the bag to beat Villarreal tomorrow night.
Leif, prediction for tomorrow?
I think Villarreal will win. I think it'll go to penalty shootout and Chelsea's keeper will miss in the penalty shootout.
Nice.
Very precise.
Really, it's just Rulli that plays in goal for Villarreal, isn't it? Was it him? Yeah, he was a good goalkeeper. I had him on FM several times.
Leif, can I ask? Has that happened before, where the goalkeepers missed the penalty in the penalty shootout?
Again, don't really want to talk about it. Ash, what do you think?
Move on to Ash, yeah.
Ash, what do you think? I don't want to really talk about it. Okay.
I'm going to back the big yellow submarine in Unai Emery. Don't know how. I only knew they were playing Villarreal like Tang the other day, but I'm going to back them anyway. Chelsea have got a lot of players that played in sort of European Championship last stages. Might be a bit tired. I'm expecting Villarreal to, I don't know, maybe extra time, 1-0.
What's good is that on the next podcast, we'll play these all back. So that'll be a lot of fun in the next one. We'll move on. We'll talk about Rafael Varane. Speaking of medical, we spoke about Romelu Lukaku having his Chelsea medical. Varane, even though this feels a bit weird, like it was like announced when, like 3 weeks ago, is actually in Manchester now, finally having his medical. There's a rumor that maybe he could be announced tomorrow officially, the pictures with the contracts and the shirts and all that kind of stuff. What do you think, Tang? I mean, this is a pretty big signing for Manchester United, isn't it?
It's a very good signing, I think. I think that when you guys signed Harry Maguire, I think people expected a lot from him. Harry Maguire was very good at Leicester when they were sat on the 18-yard box and he just had to head stuff away, Leicester on the counter. When he joined United, he wasn't doing that. He was on the halfway line pretty much all the game. United had a lot of possession in games. That's not the £80 million Harry Maguire. That's not why he was that player, if that makes sense. Varane, however, is that sort of defender. He is the one that plays on the halfway line, and he's very used and accustomed to doing that. So I think this is a really good signing. And if you add on Sancho to that, and if you get that extra player, whether that's Trippier or that central midfielder that you're looking for, I think United could be up there and they should be challenging, really.
Chrissy, what do you think when it comes to Varane? I think the fee is something crazy, like 40 million euros or something like that. I mean, it's a steal, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a proper steal considering his pedigree.
I mean, for me, this is the signing of the summer. I mean, what a bit of business Manchester United have done to bring in, someone that's won, countless number of league titles, Champions League. He's a World Cup winner as well. He's going to bring leadership. And let's not forget, he's still only 27 or something like that, and he's been around the game for ages, playing at the top level of his game. Like I said, for me, this is the signing of the summer. And I don't think it'll be topped. I don't think this signing will be topped.
Leif, obviously very passionate on this one with Rafael Varane as a fellow Manchester United fan. What's interesting when it comes to him, because I don't think he's going to be involved against Leeds on Saturday because he's still going through the process of. I don't know what his quarantine situation is even like. I was surprised he could show up at Carrington today because I was like, I'm pretty sure you're meant to be quarantined. And you, so I was confused by that. But nevertheless, what do you think when it comes to this? It's something obviously United desperately needed, wasn't it?
Oh, I completely agree with Chris. I think it's fantastic signing of someone of that pedigree, and the fee that's what pushes it into, I think, the signing of the window, or potentially a signing of the window. I think the prospect of us freeing up a defensive midfielder because we're more solid at the back is quite exciting, especially if it means dropping Fred. That's very exciting to me.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic signing. Someone like Chris said, who was part of the Real Madrid side, who dominated Europe for 4 or 5 years. He's won a World Cup, and he's 28, and he's at the peak of his powers, I would say. And I agree with Ting as well. Maguire has got someone who's got that recovery pace as well, which Lindelof arguably didn't have. A back four with Shaw, Maguire, Varane, and Wan-Bissaka, potentially Trippier. It's exciting. It's definitely very exciting. It gives us a solid base at the back for United, and this is why I put him in my top 4 predictions.
Barnes, what do you think about, and we'll open this up to everyone afterwards, but there's been a lot of stuff recently, specifically with Varane. Danny Mills, say that, who cares? Danny Mills was saying about you struggle to adjust. You know, it's a difficult league to adjust to. You don't do much defending in La Liga, which, by the way, is totally. Yeah, exactly. You struggle to adjust to keeping hair. Bald. So, Barnes, what do you think about that whole struggling to adjust thing? I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it?
It's a load of rubbish. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think what you might have said, Owen, or you, Leif, that he was born in northern France, so he's adjusting from northern France to Manchester. It's not that much different. It's not going to change. He's won the World Cup. He's won the Liga multiple times. He's not going to need much time to adjust. Danny Mills is talking absolute rubbish. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I kind of want to go against all the United loving on this transfer, but I just can't. I mean, it is an unbelievable transfer at the end of the day, and I don't think you get too many fans, even from other clubs, from the top 6 or whoever, that would really say otherwise. To be honest, he's clearly a great player, class act. What more can you say, really?
I'll open it up to everyone else about the whole the Danny Mills comment. It's total nonsense, right? That whole he'll struggle to adjust.
It is nonsense, to be fair. I take Ash's point where he's going from northern France to Manchester. He's probably had away games in League further away than Manchester. I think that, to be honest, I get the sentiment, but the sentiment should be you have to adjust to every single game you play. Every game's different. Yeah. Every game in every league is different. I get the sentiment, but it's not the right scale, and also Danny Mills is not the beacon of all knowledge. I'll say that there. I'm sorry for Danny Mills if you're listening.
Yeah, he probably not. But Chrissy, when it comes to that whole he'll struggle to adjust, that whole thing, is there a bit of a, I don't want to seem like I'm turning on England or anything silly like that, but is there a bit of a falsehood of because that's what the cliche, isn't it? There's no easy games in the Premier League, when in reality there is. There is. I mean, what do you think about the whole he'll struggle to adjust narrative?
Well, that's the thing. He's talking about someone that, what was it? He left, Lens in France when he was 18 years old, and he adjusted to La Liga just fine. And going off the whole, there's no easy games in England, blah blah. I'm sorry, but you look at the English players that have moved abroad. Michael Owen flopped at Real Madrid. Jonathan Woodgate, he flopped at Real Madrid. You could make the argument for the other way around, saying, "Wow, it's all good," saying players coming from other leagues can't settle into the Premier League. Well, what about players going from the Premier League to other leagues? That's where you have to give credit to likes of Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham, and that for taking that huge step and thriving and that.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just think it was an absolutely ridiculous comment from Danny Mills. I mean, if you want to get a true comment about Varane, you should really be talking to people that have worked under him. Your Mourinho's, your Deschamps, your Zidane, not someone that was a bang average left back in the Prem. And I don't care if he's watching this. He was a bang
Deschamps will be available.
He's screwing up Danny Mills.
I don't care if you watch it. Leif, because Chrissy's obviously itching for a fight. Leif, what do you think about the whole he'll struggle to adjust? Because one of the comments was that he made is that in La Liga you don't do you go through a lot of games not doing much defending. It's any big club, isn't it? You know, surely.
Exactly. It's a nonsense comment, really. And a lot of these comments on TalkSport are quite similar. They've got a lot of people on there who talk and make these clickbait comments like Simon Jordan, Jamie O'Hara, Jason Cundy. I mean, who's Jason Cundy?
You're a big Simon Jordan fan, aren't you, Leif? I've
yeah, big Simon Jordan fan. He's got a lot to say for someone who took Palace into financial turmoil. A lot to say. But TalkSport have got a lot of people like that. It's just radio clickbait. That's all it is. And they have to have these people on there to make it listenable. I mean, we're probably not listenable either.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. You say that though. You say they have to have on there to be listenable, but it's not. Like if you tune in, so sometimes I've been in the car.
It creates that fury, doesn't it? Like we're talking about now.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Which is more airtime than they deserve. Good segue,
exactly.
Josh Layford. Right, let's move on. Best Premier League transfer window. Ting, what do you think? Who's had the best? Can't be Liverpool. They haven't signed anyone. Ed's not here, but
Ed's not here. No, it's fine. I've just realised in that last section that Danny Mills has fumed me so much. I thought Varane played in France. Massive apologies from me there. But I think there's only one place to look. You know, when you sign a centre back for 40, 50 million, it's going to be a good sign. And of course, I'm talking about Ben White to Arsenal. I just think that's the signing of the summer for Arsenal. I think that he is a player that will improve them defensively. I think Chris will agree. And I watch a lot of Brighton. I went to have a little soft spot for Brighton. Ben White can pass the ball similar to David Luiz, but what he can do that David Luiz can't, I don't think anyway, is that he can bring the ball out of defence. He's very comfortable on the ball, very good at breaking lines, and I think that him at the back will make Arsenal a better team. And
avoid relegation. Maybe.
And hopefully relegation.
Well, I was going to jump in on Ting. I thought Ting was going to say what Ben White can do at David Luiz can't is defend.
Of course,
Chrissy, what do you think? Who's had the best Premier League transfer window?
I mean, as much as it pains me to say it, I will say Man United have, but I will talk about another team because I reckon I'd save Man United for Leif to talk about. But I'm going to say Aston Villa. You know, all right, they have lost their talisman in Jack Grealish, but I think they've brought in some very good players. You know, I think Danny Ings, like I reckon he'll thrive under Dean Smith. I reckon he'll bag 20 goals with the amount of creativity around it. And Leon Bailey, he's such an exciting, explosive winger, and that he'll offer a lot of pace to Aston Villa. And I generally think Aston Villa, you know, I reckon Villa will finish top 10 this season with their business. Maybe bring in one or two more players, which obviously I can see them doing. But I think if you're an Aston Villa fan, you should be excited for the upcoming season, even though you've lost Jack Grealish.
They got is it Ashley Young has gone back to Aston Villa as well, isn't it? As well,
So
they got
good leader. He's a good leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Solid player.
Leif, what do you think? Best Premier League transfer window, Manchester United?
Yeah, I do.
We'll move on.
And I agree with Chris as well. Aston Villa is between us. I mean, there's a long way to go yet. I think there's a lot that could still happen, which could change who I think has the best transfer window. But you can't look past Man United, mainly because of Varane signing, not Sanchez, fantastic signing as well. But Aston Villa, Chris said, I like the way that the chairman or CEO came out and spoke about the philosophy behind those signings and trying to replicate Grealish's attributes and signing it through 3 or 4 players. And they're great signings. But I think Bailey will hit the ground running. Danny Ings, if he stays fit, will score goals. Aston Villa and Man United. I'd probably say Aston Villa just to try and make sure people don't think I'm completely biased.
Right. We've got to have those people on the podcast, just people that is completely blinded by loyalty. Fans, what do you think? Who's had the best Premier League transfer window?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with the lads. I mean, that hasn't been that many transfers so far. Maybe that's
it's difficult. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you asked that question, I was suddenly, who was transferred anyway? I think Man United and Aston Villa are good shouts. I'd like to talk about someone who's not had a good window, and someone I don't think they've been mentioned on this podcast, probably just because they're the most mediocre, boring team in the Premier League. That's Everton under Rafa Benitez, signing Andros Townsend on a free transfer. Is that the only business they've done? I can't think of anyone else.
Damari Gray.
Damari Gray, again.
And Asmir Begovic as well.
Not lighting up. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. Sorry, now
Turn it around. Yeah, turn it around. Best Premier League transfer.
I changed my mind completely.
They brought in the Begovic.
They brought the guy that wanted to fight Ivan Toney.
Like, where are they going? Like, under Ancelotti last season, there was a real, like, you know, Everton are actually going to do something. And you remember they went on that winning streak and might have won 4 or 5 games in a row at the start of the season. We were like, oh, Everton are actually decent. And now it's just sort of, they even get in a new stadium and the atmosphere is still so, like, meh. Like, their transfer window, they've got money as well. Don't think they haven't got money. And James is potentially leaving as well. I don't know, it's just bad vibes and bad transfer window for Everton.
Bad vibes.
So definitely Man United.
Bad vibes. No, I think I remember. I mean, I might be wrong here, but I recall seeing something about Everton that they overspent quite a lot, and that bringing it back to FFP, which again just is what's crazy about it, that they were struggling this year because their wage bill was so high, and they did finish 9th last year, so they couldn't really do much this year, and they were keen on getting a few people off the books. But again, I mean, it's a good point. Like, you know, you've got this big club, Everton, invested big last year, and for most of the season looked like they were going to see some form of reward, and then they didn't. They was just Everton again. So I think it's a good point. But we're rapidly running out of time. So we will probably be back, Friday? Probably back Friday again, unless something happens, and then it'll be every day. It will be every day. But be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, smash a like on the video as well. That does help us out, as we're already on the road to, I mean, I was going to say 1,000, but that seems miles off. But from a YouTube point of view, that's significant. So we'll say on the road to 100, on the long road to 1,000. We'll go to that kind of direction. But thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you again very, very soon.